My beloved child, there is a reason you found these words at this exact moment, and before you decide to move away, I need you to listen carefully, because what you are about to hear may completely change the way you understand everything that has been happening around you. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and I do not want you to miss the moment when everything begins to make sense. You may have thought the silence was rejection, the distance was punishment, or the sudden change in someone's behavior was the final answer you had been afraid to receive. But what if the truth is far more unexpected than that? What if the reason someone can no longer look at you the way they once did has nothing to do with your worth, your value, or your future? What if the story you have been telling yourself about this situation is only the first layer of something much deeper? There are moments in life when a door seems to close so quietly that you barely notice it happening, yet behind that closed door, something enormous is being rearranged. You may have felt that rearrangement. You may have sensed it in the strange pauses, the unanswered questions, the unexpected distance, the feeling that something has changed but nobody has explained what changed. And perhaps the title of this message caught your attention because a sentence similar to it has been living inside your heart. I can't bear to look at you now because of the S. You may already have a word in mind. Maybe it is a secret. Maybe it is a situation. Maybe it is something you still cannot understand. But do not rush to the conclusion. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because sometimes the unfinished sentence is more powerful than the completed one. Sometimes the missing word represents something your heart is not yet ready to name. And sometimes what appears to be an ending is actually the moment before a revelation. Think about the last time you felt someone pull away from you without giving you a clear explanation. Remember the way you replayed the conversation afterward, searching every sentence for a hidden meaning. Remember how you wondered whether you had done something wrong. Maybe you questioned your appearance, your personality, your decisions, your past, or even your ability to be loved. But listen carefully. Not every person who turns away from you is turning away because you are lacking. Some people turn away because what they see forces them to confront something within themselves. Your presence can remind someone of a truth they have been avoiding. Your growth can reveal how long they have remained still. Your peace can expose the chaos they have tried to hide. Your strength can make them aware of the places where they still feel uncertain. And your silence can sometimes speak louder than 1,000 explanations. This is why you must not judge the entire story by one painful moment. Don't skip this part, because the meaning of that distance may become clearer as we continue. There is something you have not seen yet. Something has been developing quietly while you were focused on what appeared to be disappearing. And when you finally see it, you may realize that the thing you thought was breaking you was actually redirecting you towards something you could not recognize before. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, and the most important part has not even arrived yet. There is a hidden chapter behind every sudden change, and yours may be closer to being revealed than you realize. You have probably asked yourself why everything became different so quickly. One day, there was warmth, attention, conversation, expectation, and possibility. Then suddenly, there was hesitation. The tone changed. The energy changed. The connection felt different. You noticed things that other people would have ignored. You noticed the shorter replies, the longer pauses, the unusual silence, the way someone's eyes seemed to avoid meeting yours. And because you noticed it, your mind began constructing explanations. Perhaps you assumed the worst because uncertainty is uncomfortable. When people do not give us answers, our imagination often creates them for us. But what if the explanation you created is completely wrong? What if the distance is not a verdict against you but evidence that something is being confronted behind the scenes? There are times when people step back because they are overwhelmed by what they feel, by what they realize, or by what they suddenly understand. Sometimes a person can look at someone they once underestimated and realize that they were wrong. Sometimes they can witness a change so significant that it forces them to question their own previous judgment. And sometimes the hardest thing to face is not another person at all, but the reflection that person creates. Your transformation can become a mirror. Your progress can become a mirror. Your refusal to remain trapped in an old version of yourself can become a mirror. The person who once knew exactly how to speak to you may suddenly become uncertain because you are no longer responding from the same place. You are no longer begging to be understood. You are no longer explaining every decision. You are no longer chasing every disappearing connection. You are learning to stand still without needing everyone to validate your existence. And that change can be powerful enough to make people uncomfortable. Do not skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because there is a difference between losing someone and outgrowing the version of yourself that needed them. You may be standing at that exact crossroads right now. One part of you wants an explanation. Another part of you wants peace. One part of you wants to go back and repair what was lost. Another part quietly knows that going backward would require you to become someone you no longer are. That inner conflict is not weakness. It is evidence of transition. You are standing between an old chapter and a new one. And the strange thing about transition is that it often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. It feels like emptiness before it feels like space. It feels like confusion before it feels like clarity. So if someone cannot look at you now, do not immediately assume that your light has become smaller. It may be that your light has become impossible to ignore. And that is where this story becomes much more interesting. Before you decide what this moment means, I want you to remember something important. People do not always reveal what they are feeling when they are feeling it. Some people become silent when they are surprised. Some become distant when they are afraid of saying the wrong thing. Some hide when they realize that their previous assumptions were incorrect. Others need time because the truth has arrived faster than their emotions can process it. You may be expecting a dramatic confession, a sudden message, or an obvious sign, but life rarely announces its biggest changes with a loud sound. Sometimes the greatest shift begins with a pause. A conversation that does not happen. A message that is not sent. A meeting that is delayed. A plan that suddenly changes. At first, these things can feel like disappointments. But later, you may discover that they protected you from something you could not see at the time. That is why I want you to stop measuring your future by what is happening today. Today is a single frame in a much larger story. You cannot understand an entire movie from one frame. You cannot understand a journey from 1 mile. And you cannot understand your entire life from one painful interaction. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. There is a reason this message is asking you to slow down instead of immediately reacting. Your first emotional response may not be your final truth. You might feel tempted to send one more message, ask one more question, explain yourself one more time, or prove that you are worthy of someone's attention. But what if you do not need to prove anything? What if the most powerful response is to remain calm and allow reality to reveal itself? There is strength in not chasing an answer before the answer is ready. There is strength in letting people show you who they are without forcing them to perform for you. There is strength in allowing silence to become information rather than immediately filling it with assumptions. And there is something else you need to understand. When you stop chasing clarity from people who refuse to provide it, you create room for clarity to arrive from another direction. You begin noticing patterns. You begin remembering conversations you once dismissed. You begin recognizing the difference between genuine care and temporary attention. You begin seeing that some connections were built around who you used to be, not who you are becoming. And when that realization arrives, the pain may still be there, but it no longer controls you. You begin asking a different question. Instead of asking, "Why don't they see me?" you begin asking, "Why was I so desperate to be seen by someone who was not willing to look?" That question changes everything. And once you understand the answer, you will not be able to return to the same mindset again. A moment is approaching in this story that may cause you to rethink the entire situation. But before we reach it, you need to understand the power of the unfinished sentence in the title. I can't bear to look at you now because of the S. Why stop there? Why leave the final word hidden? Because sometimes the word we expect is not the word we need. You may think it means shame. You may think it means sadness. You may think it means surprise. You may think it means something happened that cannot be undone. But what if the missing word represents recognize what they failed to appreciate before? What if the sight of your growth reminds them of every moment they assumed you would always remain available? What if they believed you would always wait, always explain, always return, always forgive, always remain exactly where they left you? Then one day, something changed. You changed. You stopped waiting. You stopped trying to convince. You stopped asking for permission to move forward. And suddenly, the person who was comfortable with the old version of you is confronted by the new version. That can create an emotional shock. It can make someone question decisions they once felt certain about. It can make them look back at moments they treated casually and realize those moments mattered more than they understood. But listen carefully, this is not a message telling you to wait for someone to regret losing you. Your future should never depend on another person's regret. Your purpose is not to become successful simply so someone else feels sorry. Your healing is not a performance. Your growth is not revenge. Your peace is not a weapon. You do not need anyone to suffer for you to win. The real victory is reaching a point where their reaction no longer determines your direction. And that point may be much closer than you think. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because there is a deeper revelation coming, the person you thought this story was about may not actually be the most important person in it. You may be the person this entire experience has been preparing. Every unanswered question may have pushed you toward self-respect. Every disappointment may have taught you discernment. Every moment you felt overlooked may have forced you to recognize your own value. Every closed door may have redirected your attention toward a door you had not even noticed. And perhaps the reason the old connection became uncomfortable is because you were never meant to spend the rest of your life standing inside an old chapter. Something new is asking for your attention. Something bigger than the explanation you have been waiting for. Right now, there may be a part of you that wants certainty. You want to know exactly what happened, exactly what someone is thinking, exactly what will happen next. But certainty is not always available before the next chapter begins. Sometimes you are given enough light to take one step, not enough light to see the entire road. That can feel frightening, but it can also be an invitation to trust the process of becoming. You do not need to know every detail of tomorrow to make a wise decision today. You do not need to know whether someone will return to know that you deserve consistency. You do not need to know whether someone will finally understand you to know that your value was never dependent on their understanding. And you do not need to decode every silence to recognize when silence itself has become an answer. Stay till the end. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you. The next part of this realization is important because it changes the direction of the story. Imagine standing in a room filled with photographs of your past. Every photograph represents something you once believed would define you forever. A friendship, a dream, a relationship, a mistake, a rejection, a disappointment, a moment when someone said something that stayed with you for years. Now imagine walking through that room and realizing something extraordinary. None of those photographs can move. They can remind you, but they cannot control where you go next. The past can explain you, but it does not have the authority to imprison you. You can honor what happened without living inside it. You can acknowledge that something hurt without allowing that pain to become your identity. And you can admit that you wanted someone to stay while also accepting that their departure may have created space for something healthier. This is the part people often discover too late. They spend years waiting for the person who left to return, when the real invitation was to return to themselves. They keep looking at the closed door, unaware that another door has already opened behind them. They keep asking why someone cannot look at them, while life is quietly asking them to look forward. Do not skip this message because the next realization may be the one that changes how you interpret everything that happened before. There are signs of growth that do not feel like growth while they are happening. Losing interest in arguments. Needing less validation. Becoming comfortable with silence. Choosing peace over explanation. Recognizing patterns sooner. Walking away without hatred. Forgiving without reopening the same door. These are not small changes. They are evidence that something inside you has shifted. And when you shift internally, the world around you begins responding differently. Some people will adjust and grow with you. Some will remain where they were. Some will disappear. And some may return only after realizing that the person they once knew no longer exists in the same form. Here is where the story becomes even more unexpected. The silence you have been fearing may eventually become the very thing that reveals what words could never reveal. Words can be carefully chosen. Words can be delayed. Words can be edited. But patterns are harder to disguise. Watch what happens when you stop forcing the situation. Watch who makes an effort without being chased. Watch who notices your absence. Watch who respects your boundaries. Watch who celebrates your progress without competing with it. Watch who wants access to your life only when you are doing well. And watch who remains supportive when there is nothing to gain. These observations will teach you more than any dramatic explanation ever could. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. You have been searching for a sentence that explains someone's behavior, but perhaps you are about to receive something better: evidence. Evidence is powerful because it removes the need for endless guessing. And when evidence arrives, you will not need to force yourself to believe it. You will simply know. There may come a day when someone looks at you differently, speaks to you differently, or approaches you with a completely different attitude. If that moment comes, remember this message. Do not let one moment of attention erase months of confusion. Do not confuse nostalgia with transformation. Do not assume that a return automatically means a change. People can miss your presence without being ready to honor your future. That distinction is critical. You should never measure a person's sincerity by how emotional they become when they realize they may lose access to you. Measure it by what they consistently do afterward. A dramatic moment can be powerful, but consistency is stronger. A beautiful apology can touch the heart, but changed behavior is what gives it meaning. A promise can sound extraordinary, but repeated action is what turns a promise into trust. This is why your next chapter requires patience. You do not need to rush toward anyone. You do not need to slam every door either. Simply stand where your self-respect is strongest and let people reveal themselves. If someone truly values your presence, they will not need you to become smaller to make them comfortable. If someone truly respects you, your growth will not threaten them. If someone truly belongs in your next chapter, they will not require you to abandon yourself to keep them there. And if someone cannot bear to look at you because of the truth they see in your transformation, let them process that truth in their own time. Your responsibility is not to manage their feelings. Your responsibility is to continue becoming the person you were meant to become. Something is changing beneath the surface, and you may not recognize it yet because major transformations rarely announce themselves at the beginning. Think about a seed beneath the soil. From the outside, it appears that nothing is happening. There is no visible movement. No obvious progress. No dramatic sign. Yet beneath the surface, an entire process is underway. Roots are forming. The structure is changing. The foundation is developing. Then one day, what seemed invisible becomes impossible to ignore. That is how your life may be working right now. You are in the hidden stage. You are building roots before anyone sees the result. You are developing strength before the opportunity arrives. You are learning discernment before the next connection appears. You are becoming emotionally prepared before the next chapter opens. So do not mistake silence for inactivity. Do not mistake waiting for failure. Do not mistake an empty space for an empty future. Stay till the end. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you. There is a reason you have survived every chapter that once convinced you that you would never be okay again. There is a reason you are still here after moments you thought would completely define you. You have already lived through versions of yourself that believed they could not make it through certain seasons. And yet, you did. You became someone those earlier versions of you could not imagine. That is evidence. You have already experienced transformation before, which means you should not underestimate what can happen next. Perhaps this current situation is not asking you to fight harder. Perhaps it is asking you to see differently. Perhaps you are being invited to stop interpreting every loss as punishment. Some losses are simply endings. Some endings are protection. Some delays are preparation. Some disappointments are redirection. And some people leave.